Welcome everybody to our webinar with Helena Long today on leading modern teams. Today's webinar is really a 101 of this topic, and we're going to cover it really quickly since we only have 20 minutes. I do want to remind everyone to go ahead and mute their computer or their phone if you are joining us, just so that way we don't have a lot of background noise. And throughout the session, if you have any questions, feel free to just type them in the chat session and I will alert Helena to these questions. Or at the end, we will also have a time dedicated to any questions you may have about this topic. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Helena. Helena has over 30 years of executive and management experience in organization and talent development, as well as strategic planning, leadership, and professional development, and has a really strong HR background. Helena, thank you for joining us today, and I will let you go ahead and take the floor.
Great. Thank you, Kylie, and welcome everyone. We are really thrilled to have you with us for this session. We are here today to talk about modern teams. And to me, this is such a timely and exciting topic because in our business environment today, we all conduct our work through a teaming structure. And the teams today look so very different than they did even 5 years ago, especially with the advances in technology. We can have team members all around the world on our teams today. So regardless of how our teams look, as a team leader, our job is to get our teams to this high-performing state as quickly as possible and keep them there. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I have a quote that I want to share with you there. And so it's a quote from Henry Ford that says, "Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success." And today we're going to be talking about best practices that we can use as a leader to help our teams work together very successfully. So our topics, what we're going to cover today would be a high-performing team. What do they look like and how do we get our teams there? Establishing team norms and responsibilities. And then the last topic will be on trust and conflict resolution for a team. So to make sure that we have the same picture when we're talking about a team, I want to make a distinction between a group and a team. A group would be individuals coming together because they have a common interest or a common purpose, and primarily a group of people would be coming together just to share information. A team, however, also has a common goal, but they have a unified approach. And the accountability is huge for a team, both at the individual level and at the team level. And then team members have complementary skills. So I like to think about this as putting together pieces of a puzzle so that we're looking for different skills such that, say, my strengths offset your weaknesses, your strengths offset my weaknesses. So when we put all of that together, we have this dramatic synergy where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So that really is what we're talking about when we are referring to a team. There are some different types of teams, and I want to just list these quickly, but as we go through these, think about which description best fits your team. So first we have project teams. Now project teams are put together for a specific purpose typically. They have a defined beginning, a defined ending time, and they have specific requirements that we're trying to accomplish. There are 4 different types of project teams. One type is your more traditional or functional team, where you have one manager and then direct reports, typically in a department. You have a cross-functional team. This would be where the team members come from different departments. You have a matrix team. Often this is referred to as a 2-boss system because the team members could administratively report to one manager. However, they could report to a team leader for the project team. And then lastly would be a contract team. This is where typically the members of the team are not part of your organization. Maybe they're with a a customer, a vendor, but you work with them for the project team. However, when the team has ended, you sever ties with those individuals. So those are project teams. In addition, we have some self-managed teams where this is no manager. The team members themselves direct the work of the team. There is a virtual team where team members are not co-located. They work in different locations. There could be an operational team. This is typically a team in a support function, where they support other teams. There could be a problem-solving team. This is typically a temporary team where the members are brought together to solve a specific problem. And then a strategic team. This is typically a longer-term team where the function is focused on the competitive advantage of the organization. How do we make that the team or the business more competitive in the workplace? So as you look at those types of teams, hopefully you can select one that best fits your situation. But regardless of the type of team, there are some key characteristics, again, that go with the team of the accountability, the common approach, and the complementary skills. So as a team leader, there are always things that we can do, best practices that we can follow to help our team be most effective. So I want to talk now about some things that as a team leader, we need to keep in mind even prior to launching the team or at kickoff. And Babe Ruth, the quote here that really helps describe this, the way a team plays as a whole determines its success. You may have the greatest bunch of individual stars in the world, but if they don't play together, the club won't be worth a dime. So what are things we need to do as a team leader, even before we kick off the team, to make sure they play well together? First is around goals. As a team leader, we need to be really clear on why the team is established. But then even more importantly, we've got to be prepared to communicate that effectively to our team and in a very inspiring way. This would be like your team vision. And let me give you an example. Let's say that you have been asked to lead a team focused on your company's online travel reservation system. You have been asked to cut the cost by 15%. That is a very admirable goal. But would it be more exciting if you were going to communicate to your team that we get to develop an online travel reservation system that will rival the best online travel reservation system for ease of use for the user, reduce the cost, increased flexibility, more options. In fact, when we finish with the work of our team, we want our users to say, boy, we wish Travelocity worked as well as our online travel reservation system. I want to be a part of that team. I think that would be a lot more exciting. And so as a leader, this is a golden opportunity from day one to get our team members emotionally engaged in our team. It's how we launch it. And then secondly, we want to get our team members involved in setting the objectives and determining how we accomplish this goal. If we want buy-in, our team members need to weigh in. So plan from the beginning to get them involved in planning how. Secondly, we want to look at the organizational environment. As a team leader, our role is to be the champion for the team, the barrier buster, even the buffer for the organization. So we need to be aware of anything external to our team that could be hindering our performance or causing a barrier. And we need to make sure that the rest of the organization understands what we're doing, why, and the importance of that. We need to look at roles. We want to make sure that every team member understands why they're on the team, what their role is, how their role relates to everyone else on the team, and most importantly, we want everyone on the team to see how what they do directly relates to the success of the team. And then process. As a team leader, we need to be aware of the processes that should be in place so that our team can operate smoothly. Things such as information flow, technologies, problem solving, decision-making processes, team meetings. What are our meeting processes? And then documentation and reporting procedures. And then relationships. This is really looking at the WIFM for our team members. Of course, WIFM is W-I-I-F-M, what's in it for me. And as a team leader, we need to try to understand what is important to each of our team members from a personal standpoint, and then see to what extent we can help them meet those needs. For example, to what extent do they need recognition, and what kind of recognition do they need? What kind of support? What about respect? How much feedback do they want, and how do they want that feedback? There are things that we can do as a leader, again, to help our team members be engaged and highly motivated for the team. So now that we've got our team structure established, now we've got to focus on the team dynamics. And so the way I do this is through an exercise. So I ask each team member to work individually and to reflect on their very positive team experience that they have had sometime in their life. It could be a work team, a sports team, a church team, maybe even a school team. But when they think about it, it was a very positive team experience. And then I asked them to describe that team. What was it about that team that made it so positive for them? And I'd like to pause for a couple of seconds and ask you to do the same. Just think about a positive team experience you had and what made that positive for you. So then we ask each team member to share their list. And an example could look like this. Here are some examples of those characteristics. So we collect the list, and you can imagine this does not take long. We can do this very quickly. And yet I have a list now of really a high-performing team. I point out to the team, you have just described a high-performing team. I ask a couple of questions. Can we make the assumption that if this was a positive team experience for you, you would like for our team to look like that? And of course, everyone says, yeah, that'd be great if we looked like that picture. Great. So now we have just really defined our vision for our team dynamics and how we want to work together. Then I asked the team, did you look like this on day one? And they say, no, it took us a while to get there. And so then that leads us into our norms. And one option we have as a team leader is we could just let our team norms evolve, and they will. Your team norms will develop. However, it takes time for them to develop. And if we just allow them to develop without any real direction, we could very likely have some dysfunctional team norms. We want to make sure our norms focus us on this picture. So we want to be very deliberate about developing those. Now I want to pause here and say that I'm talking about doing this with a new team, but I real often get called in to work with companies with dysfunctional teams. And I use this exercise with them as well, because we can still get a list of a high-performing team. We can still get a list of how the team members would like to function, and then we can do a gap analysis. So are you focusing on hitting goals today? Are you giving each other feedback today? We can do a gap analysis and determine what actions we need to take to help the team become more functional. So just wanted to share that with you as another way to use this exercise. But back to norms. So now I want to lead my team in developing team norms that will help us look like this picture. So let's talk about creating team norms for a moment. The purpose of this is to make sure every team member knows what's expected of him or her. And the purpose is to help us get to that high-performing state. Once we have our norms, each team member can use them to evaluate how well we're performing. And also each team member can use that to even help facilitate team progress. So the team members monitor the norms. The team leader very seldom, if ever, has to step in with that. The team norms should be very specific and clear so everyone understands what's expected. You want a list of 10 approximately. Then you display this list. You want it visible so we can use this as a living tool to help us facilitate our team dynamics. And these can be changed so that as our team matures, we may decide to modify the team norms. But it is a very powerful tool to use as a team leader for team members to help us be a high-performing team. Here is a list of some examples for team norms. And I won't read the list to you, but you can get an idea of some typical norms that you would want to have on your or have for your team. You'll notice that the last bullet is focused on disagreements or conflict, and it refers to a pinch stage. One of the norms that I like to suggest to a team is using a model of conflict resolution called pinch crunch. And I'd like to share that with you right now. So research on conflict says there are basically 3 stages of conflict. At stage 1, I'm concerned about myself, I'm concerned about the other party, I'm concerned about you, and I want to solve the problem. So at stage 1 of conflict, basically we have a problem-solving situation. If the conflict is not resolved and it escalates to stage 2, now I'm still concerned about me. I am still concerned about the problem. I don't really care about you anymore. And if the conflict then escalates to stage 3, now I'm really just concerned about myself. It really gets into self-preservation at that point. So this tells us that for a high-performing team, we want to solve conflict at stage 1, when really it's just a problem to be solved. If we don't solve it there, then the relationships become damaged. So we want to solve it at stage 1. The pinch crunch model is a great tool to use. And the model looks like this. We can start at the left side over here, the startup, and in any relationship, when we start, we have assumptions. Those assumptions may be stated, such as our norms. Some of them may be assumed, but we assume that we're on the same page as we are starting into a relationship, like on a team. So then we start becoming productive, however you define productivity for that relationship. But then inevitably there will be some kind of an irritation, a conflict, a disagreement. That is the pinch. And at that point, we have a couple of options. One option is that we go back to the other party and we have this constructive conversation where we go back and we renegotiate the expectations and get on the same page and then continue being productive. The other option is we avoid the conflict. We say it's not that bad. It will go away. Of course, we know that they never really go away, do they? So the conflict stays there if we don't address it. We continue trying to be productive, but what happens typically is that irritation grows, the conflict gets bigger, and it gets to the point eventually that now it becomes a crunch. And when we get to a crunch situation, typically some relationships have been damaged, and now we have a major issue. When we get to the crunch stage, we've got 3 options. One option is we still go back to the other party. We have that constructive conversation and we renegotiate our assumptions or expectations. However, at that point, it's much more difficult to do because the relationship has been damaged. Another option is we avoid the conflict and try to continue being productive. However, at that point, we probably have a very dysfunctional relationship. The third option is we terminate the relationship because it is so badly broken that we can't fix it. So I introduced this model and we get a commitment from the team members that we're going to address our conflicts when they are at a pinch stage. At that point, they're disagreements, they are problems to be solved. And in fact, that could actually be good for the team because that is how we reach some new breakthrough thinking, or we get all of the ideas out on the table to reach the best conclusion. So working at that top part of the model where we're in the pinch stage can be very productive for a team. So with that, we have covered all of the key items, key topics for today. What questions do you have? Kylie, have we had any questions come through?
We have not had any questions, so feel free to either message us your questions in that chat feature. You can either send them to me privately, it's Kylie, or you can ask them if you want to unmute your microphone. You can ask any questions. While we're waiting for you guys to feel comfortable asking some questions, I actually have one while I was listening to this. So I'm thinking about modern teams, and conflict is complicated on a good team, on an in-person team. And I'm thinking about these modern teams and how we have all this workplace flexibility these days, right? People are working different shifts. They might be working remotely, or maybe they're just not in the office in traditional hours, right? So thinking about that pinch crunch model and how we communicate these days, how do you recommend a person or a leader who's got teams that might be coming and going a lot do conflict when you might be remote or you're not seeing each other?
I think a real key, this discussion could be a whole seminar in and of itself, but I think a real key is establishing a relationship with each of the team members. As a leader, we just have to make that extra effort to stay connected. We can't just have those water cooler conversations with our virtual team members. So we have to make very deliberate efforts to connect with them, to get to know them, to understand their values and what's important to them, their WIFMs and so on, and stay connected so that, and have regular check-in points so that we can really know when they are concerned, when they're irritated, when they're at that pinch stage. As a leader, that's what we can do. We also have to encourage team members to stay connected more, really make more deliberate efforts to do that. That's a real simple answer. It's a lot more complicated than that. And there are a lot of other strategies that we can use, even at a project kickoff, to establish those connections and to make sure we reinforce them throughout the life of the team. But staying connected.
Absolutely. I really like that emphasis on connection, because in another conversation you and I had, you mentioned how 7% of our communication is verbal and 93% of it isn't. So that means there's a 93% chance of us getting it wrong these days with all these modern ways of communicating. So email is great and text is great and phone calls are great, but it does add another layer of complication.
It absolutely does.
So Jared asked a fantastic question of, do you have a model or any advice for holding that constructive conversation? An example that he had with his question is, how do you hold that conversation in an effective way when you're in that pinch part of the pinch crunch model?
There are actually several models and basically some steps that you can go through. And typically what I like to do with the team is have some team training, if you will, in terms of decision making and problem solving and reinforcing some of those communication processes. So there are definitely some models, and some of the steps would include just starting out first, stating why it's an issue, and asking the other person for their opinion. It is a lot of the listening, and then sharing your opinion and getting into a collaborative model of working through that. So there are several steps to go through. That would be something that we would really cover in a longer session. But yes, there are definitely some key steps. And I like sharing a model so that everyone on the team understands what that would look like before we get there.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to almost cut you off there, but I do want to mention too, and we're going to go in depth in this in a minute, is Helena's going to do a deeper dive of this topic at the upcoming Business Partners Training Consortium. So I will mention that at the end of how to register, and we can really dive deep into some of these and really get into more specific examples or more specific feedback type advice. Sharon asks, what are some strategies to foster relationships with virtual team members and help keep them engaged?
One of the best way is ideally if you could bring everyone together at the project kickoff. Sometimes that is just not feasible, but if you can bring people together at the project kickoff and then at times throughout the project or the team, that would be the best way to at least get that started. Other things to do, just strategies, would be having the norms about, in terms of the meetings, having roles, having specific actions for each person to follow. And having actually time for the team to get together, even virtually, for some informal discussions or activities, taking time at each meeting to start with some informal discussions. Sharing personal information about each other, like even birthdays or personal information. That sounds perhaps sort of soft, if you will, but it helps to nurture those relationships and to have a foundation for then when you do have conflicts or there's some stress, you've got a foundation to build on there. Some other things we've done, or that I have done with teams, is have pictures of the team members. So even though they may not physically be there, I've got their picture there. With one team, we actually got the life-size figurines of the people that were virtually located and had those in the conference room. So they were physically here. So doing just some of those things, and actually I also involved the team in what are some things that we can do. When we talk about having team members that are in different time zones, adjusting team meetings so that they're not always the ones inconvenienced with the early meetings or the late meetings. If we are able to get the team together, rotating team locations so that we are accommodating different team members depending on the location. Some of those are the techniques that come to mind right now. I have found that when you start brainstorming those with the team members, they also can find some that are specific to their team and their situation, and that can make a big difference as well.
Great. So this, I think, is going to be our last question, and it's a good one. So Kim asked, what if our boss doesn't see the problem, but there's an underlying fester that no one wants to openly admit? And when it is brought up to the person who is causing the problem, they deny it or are very defensive. So it is just your word against theirs. And the boss just sees it as a personality conflict and doesn't want to address it. So the issue just sits there and brews.
Well, that is a difficult one. I think it is, if you go back to just a model of collaboration, if we can get with the person and agree on what are we trying to accomplish together, and try to take it out of it's not my way or your way, but we're trying to accomplish, and we have a mutual goal. What are we trying to accomplish here? And then looking at options for trying to solve that. If we can try to approach it that way and try to take the emotion out of it, that can help. And that way we don't even have to really involve the boss, so to speak, because especially if that person is not going to recognize the issue or be supportive, we don't really need that person involved. But a key with conflict is the other person has to want to resolve the conflict. And if the other person just doesn't want to resolve it, then I think that just has to be addressed as well. And if the boss doesn't recognize it, I think it is, maybe it's trying to look at data. What are we not accomplishing, and approaching it that way from a more objective. Anytime you can use data to help support your case, the better. And again, it takes it out of an emotional realm into a more objective approach. So any way to collect data and use that can be helpful. And then there may be times when maybe the boss doesn't recognize it, but maybe you have a team sponsor or another ally or supporter in the organization that you can go to consult to get some help or some support with the issue. So in summary, these are the things that we've talked about today. And again, as Kylie said, we basically just touched on them. For each of those topics, we can do a much deeper dive, and in fact, plan to do that in the business partners session. And so just to close today, I would like to suggest that each person here think of at least one thing we talked about, at least one aha that you can apply to help you be an even more effective team leader. And with that, I would just like to say thank you for your time, for joining us today, just success. I wish you great success in being an even more effective team leader with your teams going forward. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you for being here today. So if you guys are interested in this topic and would like to do a deeper dive, Helena is actually doing this topic as part of our Business Partners Training Consortium. Her topic is actually going to be on, it's the second one of our consortium. So it's one of 8 topics, and it will be the October 17th. We would love to have you guys join. So you purchase a bundle of seats. You can purchase a one-off seat if you were interested, but it's definitely better value if you can go ahead and purchase that bundle of seats and attend all 8 sessions. We do have some flexibility in how you use your seats, and that would be a really great opportunity to really do a deeper dive into this topic. And the other thing about this is that Helena is helping us create a panel. So we're going to bring in other companies who can talk about maybe what it is that they're experiencing and how they've implemented and addressed modern team leadership issues. Thank you, Helena, for your time today. It was a very interesting and great webinar. And thank you all for being able to attend.